Lune here, Men's Living Magazine. I'm here with the awesome Travis Bell of the Bucket List. He's actually called the Bucket List Guy. How you going, Travis?
Yeah, good mate. Good,
awesome.
Good.
Thank you for having me.
No worries.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about the Bucket List.
Well, I mean, you've seen the movie, The Bucket List, and which a lot of people may or may not have seen the movie, The Bucket List, and really it's really it's a life list. All the things that you want to do really before you kick the bucket, or before you, I won't be morbid about it, but before you, end your time.
Wow. How did you get into creating the Bucket List and creating this program for it? I mean, I know you've been a personal trainer for 20 years, built a number of franchises all around Australia, and so what's going on with you these days?
Yeah, well, really, I have spent, I've never had a real job as such. So straight out of uni, I started my business. So I'm not really that corporatised. I'll apologise in advance. And I built it. I started with one client, and as a personal trainer, when there really wasn't a personal training industry in Australia. And then from there, I was the first to franchise personal training studios. Like, I built a personal training studio concept, and then we franchised that around Australia. We built a chain of 21 studios in 3 states. Done close to 1 million personal training sessions as a result. Motivated tens of thousands of clients from all walks of life, and as a result of that, there was some challenges. Long story short, was I really hated being a franchisor. And I chose not to do it anymore. Wow.
So tell us a bit about how there wasn't a market for personal training, and at that time when you started out, to going into 21 franchisees.
Well, as a personal trainer, there's always a market of would I say slack people, or no, let's say people who want to outsource their motivation. I mean, I've always said that people know what to eat. Like I said to you before, they know what to eat, they know what not to eat, they know what exercise they should be doing, but whether they do it or not is a different call. So that's where, insert personal trainer now. So there's always a market, and look, as you know, the world's getting worse. We're getting fatter, and kids are getting fatter as well, and as a result, there's a market everywhere you look.
Well,
yeah, and we're getting more convenient. We're getting, people are slowing down and putting on more calories.
So how did you go from doing the bucket list to how you got to where that is today?
Yeah, well, I essentially defranchised because I was really unhappy with being a franchisor. I know, oh, poor me, but it's all in our perception. I was becoming a lawyer, with all respects, and swapping legal letters over really simple little arguments, and I just wasn't happy. And I've always had the mantra, choose a career that you love, and you never work a day in your life. And you would have heard that before. The thing is, I was working, and I was hating it. And I love my end product, which is delivering, motivation and personal training for clients. But the other stuff just didn't float my boat. So
what other stuff is that?
Hey?
What other stuff is that?
The other stuff,
yep.
the stuff that I didn't like. Yep. Okay, really simple, mate. There was a decrease in people contact, and I love people and I love helping people, and I felt that I wasn't helping enough people with who I am and my skills and abilities. Now as a speaker, I can help. It's one to many now, which is cool.
More.
Yeah, heaps more. But I'm not the type of guy to sit behind a desk for that long. I'm pretty restless, and to be a franchisor, you've got to kind of be Hitler, and you've got to be like this. And I'm a little bit creative too, and you've got to have deep pockets for legal stoushes. And really, one of the days that I can recall was the fact that I was at a CEO lunch, and there was at the Sofitel here in Melbourne, and there was Baker's Delight, there was Bob Jones T-Marts, there was all these big Boost Juice, there was all these big franchisors in there. It was a franchisor CEO lunch. It was all nice, but they were all bitching. They had 200-300 sites out there. I've only had a handful. And I'm thinking, and they were all bitching about franchisees. As a result, I left there absolutely, utterly depressed. And I thought, no, I don't want this. And that was really the turning point for me to then make some decisions. So from there, I defranchised. Some were like, yeah, great. You know, I can do my own thing now. And I didn't sell out or anything. I just said, change it to your own brand. And some were like, no, don't go. But I had to make that decision to make me happier, and I wasn't happy. And I gave you a book before. I don't know if you've still got it.
Oh, I think.
Anyway,
what was the title of the book?
It was called Happier by Tal Ben-Shahar, who's a positive psychologist, and you know all about that. And that changed my life. It was, you know, when things hit you at certain times of your life, it just hit me between the eyes, that book. And anyway, there's this process, and they you know, to try and fashion your calling. And then my calling was, I love speaking, and this is the stuff that makes you happy. I love speaking, I love motivating people. And that's why I set up personal training. But personal training, I found, we're only helping people in one aspect of their life. So I went and did the life coaching courses. I don't call myself a life coach or anything like that, but when I did life coaching courses, so I got a lot more tools to help the whole person. I've got a bit of business experience in there, so I can help people. So my calling was, all right, let's be a motivation speaker. So yeah, there's not enough of them around. But I put on my own event anyway, and to get myself out of, and I was pretty depressed at the time. You wouldn't think of it, but I was, and for me to get depressed is pretty bad. So I'm a pretty positive guy. I mean, I've got a tattoo. You know, if it is to be, it is up to me, written on my bloody arm here.
Brian Tracy.
So I'm like, yeah, come on, mate. But I put on my own event, and I started talking about my bucket list, and I seriously have had a bucket list, a list to do before I die, my whole life. And I started talking about it during this seminar that I put on, and people started sharing theirs. And then one lady said, yeah, hey, you like the bucket list guy, you know, like, because, you know, everyone's sharing their bucket list and stuff with you. And I went, So it's really my spin on motivating people, but more importantly, it's about toward motivation. As being a motivation speaker, in my opinion, there's away from motivation, there's a toward motivation, but also motivation is momentum.
That's right.
It's really no end point. For me, an end point, a meaningful end point, is a bucket list item. And for me, also, when you cross off an item on your bucket list, like you did the other day, meeting Mick Doohan, by the way.
Took a picture of Mick Doohan.
19
years in the waiting.
Nice one. And I was like that, you know, I was like that with Richard Branson. I met him 2 years ago. I've got to meet Cadell Evans and Kelly Slater as well.
Wow.
That's a whole nother story. But you just feel stoked, you know, when you cross off stuff on your bucket list, it creates even more momentum, doesn't it?
Definitely.
And for me, it's so congruent to who I am. And that's why I've set up businesses, you know, that really produce time and money in order for me to travel around the world and do the crazy ass stuff that I do.
What are some of the challenges building up the 21 franchisees all around Australia?
Any business is all about finding the right people to run your brand. They're not all cookie cutters just like you. And like, for instance, when McDonald's started, they used to get all their franchisees. They used to get all their franchisees out of the military because they were good at following orders.
Interesting.
But look, the challenges were finding people, good people that were prepared to be a business owner versus just a personal trainer. There's a big difference. And
how did you find the motivation to go out and start up your PT business? Was there a calling? Was there a point in your life where you thought, you know, you had to change and you had to do something else? And
look, the personal training sort of came naturally because I grew up as surfing and surf life saving and that sort of thing. So I've always been a jock, so it was more like the next step, the next natural step. And I love helping people. I really do, and that's one of my values, which we talked about earlier.
Awesome.
And I love helping people. So, and I've had some massive successes with people, like dropped kilograms, heaps of kilograms off people, changed, and as a result of that, like, to help that many people. Like, we've done close to 1 million personal training sessions.
Yep.
And as a result of that, you change their lives. And it's not just their lives, it's such a pay it forward thing where you're changing their kids' lives, you're changing their partners, you're changing, when people, it's not just about weight.
The future generation.
Yeah, for sure. And you're changing their energy level. So that affects, for business owners, that affects their P&Ls.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
They get more sales, so, and energy attracts, so they get more, they get laid a bit. No one's, but it is men's living, so yeah.